covered for the second quarter. Then we will have a very short picture analysis and objectives, setting up of our expectations. Then we will have our actual discussion for this afternoon. And then, of course, hopefully we'll have enough time to reach the checkup time. And then, of course, the last component or the last segment of our discussion or our session this afternoon will be, of course, setting up or uh, setting our expectation for the week. All right. So let's start first with our um, review. Okay. So what we will do is that we will be using our public chat. So you may use it and type your answer on the public chat in terms of the different concepts that we've learned from the second quarter. So if you can still remember, okay, you're given 30 seconds. So let me first click the timer. Timer starts now. Type on our comment section the topics, lessons that we've discussed as part of the second quarter. Okay, so far, I can already see some answers on the comment section. I will be reading them later on. Okay, thank you so much for your participation. So let me read first before I reveal the answers on the presentation. So I have here answers coming from, okay, let me read. Okay, here we have Miles, small, smaller mass. Sophia, hydrocarbon, smaller mass from Isa. Kate, hydrocarbon. Pauline, functional group. Miles, functional group, aldehyde and ketone. Ian, molar mass. Miles, alcohol. Popoy, Avogadro's number. Isa, ketone. Pauline, alkene. Ian, ketone. Miles, hydroxylic acid. Ira, mole concept. Alkene, Avogadro's number, mass number, alkane, percentage composition, molar mass, percentage composition, alkene. Okay, so far, some answers have been repeated. So just as a summary, the things that we've learned from the second quarter, if you notice, the second quarter is actually the last quarter for chemistry. So of course, you might as well conclude that this starting third and fourth quarter, we will be starting our discussion focusing now on biology. So last quarter, we started with the carbon, the properties of carbon as the foundation of all organic compounds. And then we have, of course, organic compounds. And then we have hydrocarbon derivatives, namely alcohol, aldehyde, ketone, and carboxylic acid. And then, of course, we have the mole concept, the importance of mole as a counting unit and a conversion factor if you want to convert particles to grams. And then, of course, we learned the importance or the significance of the Avogadro's number or the number of particles inside a mole. So now that we've learned or had an overview of the previous quarter, I hope we're now ready to embark our new academic journey. So as I've mentioned, this quarter will focus on the living world, specifically biology, right? So I hope you are now ready, and I'm sure which you are, of course, and let's get started. So for our motivation part, I will be showing to you a very common picture. Probably you have seen this many times, especially if you are studying ecosystem and the relationship of organisms. So what we will do is that you will be given 2 minutes here. So there are four questions that we'd like to answer using that specific picture. So let me now share. So we have here the picture on the upper left side of the screen. So here are the questions that we would like to answer later on. Okay, let me read so that we can um, know or we can, of course, prepare in advance. Later on, we will go through each of these questions. Number one, based on the illustration, what is the main source of energy on Earth? Second, Do human beings get energy directly from the sun? Three, how about animals? Do they get energy directly from the sun too? And lastly, how do human beings acquire energy then? Describe the path that the light energy follows. So let us begin. Your 2 minutes starts now. Okay, time is up. So let's now go to the individual questions and let's try to answer them. Okay, so based on the question number one, if you want to know or if you know the answer, you may type the answer on the comment section. The question is, based on the illustration, what do you think is the main source of energy here on Earth, based from the picture? Okay, you have answer here coming from
From
Marinelle, okay, and also Miles, Sophia, Kate, Lawrence, Gab, and Pauline. I think all of us here answered. Okay, Judy, Candy, Aliana, Angel, Miles, Popoy, and Isa. Okay, I think we can all agree that the main source of energy here on Earth is, of course, the sun, the primary source of light or solar energy. Now, question number two, do humans get energy directly from the sun? So it's a question, is whether yes or no, right? So far, okay, I have here no answers, or answers with the no word. Okay, so yes, I confirm that the answer here is no. However, we don't get this, we don't harness or get energy from the sun directly. Instead, we have a different and specific process, biological process, which we will discuss um, during the second session of this week, right? So, how about animals? Do they get energy from the sun too, or directly from the sun? Okay, just like, of course, human beings, we are also actually classified as animals or part of the animal kingdom. So same thing with us. They are humans in gen. Oh, sorry. Animals in general don't get their energy directly from the sun. So the question is, how do humans get energy or acquire energy? How do we get the energy that we need so that we could. Okay, we have an answer here coming from Popoy, consuming other organisms. Of course, other living organism, that includes a combination of plants and animals. Depending on your diet, you can also have solely plants or solely animal, right? Food sources. Okay, correct. So humans are actually classified as heterotrophs, meaning these are organisms that cannot generate or create their own energy. Rather, they harness energy from other organisms or other living organism by consuming or devouring or eating them. Okay. So the question now is, how about plants? Let's focus now on plants. So how do plants feed or eat? How do they feed off from other plants, or are they do they get their energy from consuming other plants, or plants eat animals? So where do plants obtain energy, the raw materials to build the plant matter? So I think I have here an answer from the comment section. We have the answer, photosynthesis. So what's the process? I think the name for that process is called photosynthesis, wherein plants undergo a certain sophisticated process of converting certain chemicals in order for them to generate their food. And of course, this is a fundamental process that supports life here on Earth. So our topic for this afternoon is about photosynthesis. So this can also be understood as eating a light snack, or eating or using light to generate food or snack. So this is actually found on our textbook, pages 118 to 125. So let's first establish our goal for this afternoon. So we have one, we are able to explain how animals and plants harness or get their energy. And two, identify the important raw materials, the input, the ingredients, at the same time, the products or the result for photosynthesis. Okay. So number one is, how do plants feed or eat? So here, I think all of us here is kind of more or less acquainted to this character, one of the famous online games sa una. So we have, so plants are actually classified as autotrophs, or they are self-feeders. They produce their own food, and this allows them to sustain themselves without consuming other organisms. So they are self-reliant. And of course, I think you mentioned a while ago that this process is actually called photosynthesis. And of course, you've learned from your grade school that photosynthesis is actually a process that is made up of two Greek words, or this term is made up of two Greek words. Photos means light, and synthesis means putting together or manufacturing. So building of something. Now, photosynthesis is a process by which plants convert the solar or light energy from the sun to manufacture glucose. Now, another way of saying is that this is the conversion of one energy to another. Initially, the form of energy that is readily available here on Earth is in a form of solar or light energy. But you've learned from your science A that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed from one form to another. So in this case, the original or initial form of your energy is in light or solar energy, but through process of photosynthesis, this energy has been converted into glucose, which is a form of chemical energy. Glucose is a form of chemical energy. So we can say that photosynthesis is a conversion of light energy to chemical energy. And lastly, what enables plants for them to be able to perform this process? It's because they have this specialized organelle or part of the cell called chloroplast. So if you remember in your grade 8, you've learned the different parts of the cell as well as what makes plant and animal cell different. And one of that is, of course, the unique um, presence of chloroplast in plant cell. This particular plant cell part of the cell or organelle is not present in animals. This is uniquely present only among um, plant cells or plant-like animals. So we have here this is your chloroplast. So just to go through the different parts of a chloroplast, of course, we have here the outer membrane, which of course protects the inner parts inside the chloroplast. Then we have the stroma, that's the space inside the chloroplast. Okay, so take note, that's stroma. And then we have the inner membrane, that's the second layer of protection that regulates the movement of materials in and out the chloroplast. And then lastly, we have granum, that's singular. Grana, that's actually um, a column or a column or a collection of thylakoids. The single disc is actually your thylakoid, and a group of thylakoid actually composes one granum. Okay, so thylakoid is actually, like as I've mentioned, it's like a flattened disc or sac which houses a very unique pigment called chlorophyll, which allows or which gives plants this greenish tint to their appearance. If you look at a healthy plant, you'll notice that majority of them, not all, but majority of them, they have this greenish tint. It's because of the presence of chlorophyll inside their thylakoid, which is inside the chloroplast. Okay, so para we have a perspective. So what we will do this afternoon, we will take note of, or we will discuss the two important stages, or sometimes in other books they are called reactions. Okay, so a photosynthesis reaction or a photosynthesis process is actually divided into stages or reactions. The first stage, we call it light dependent reaction. Sometimes this is called light reaction. The second one is light independent reaction. Sometimes in other references, this stage or this reaction is called Calvin cycle. And sometimes this is also called dark reaction because this stage does not require the presence of light or solar energy. So we will go through the video later on. One for independent and one for dependent, which is the first stage. Then you have the second stage, the light independent. Now, heads up everyone, all of the links for these videos are available on the module, so you can rewatch this later on during your most convenient time. Now, you might find the video quite overwhelming, right? However, for our discussion, take note, we will only focus on four important aspects of these reactions or stages. Upat lang, okay? The first one is, of course, the goal for each stage or reaction. Second, where does this reaction or stage occur inside the plant cell or inside the chloroplast to be specific? Okay? And then what are the ingredients? That's your input. What are the raw materials needed for this reaction to occur? And lastly, the output, what are the chemicals produced at the end of this reaction? So we will understand this better using the video, and at the same time, the last picture or kanang time, no, last diagram that you will see at the end of the video. So let me now, okay, so take note, focus only on the four aspects: goal, location, input, and output. Okay, so let's start. Let me, it's already here. No, let me change the sharing. Let me, instead of sharing my screen, let me share it as a tab so that you can really hear the sound.
The leaves of this plant have cells that carry out photosynthesis. If we zoom in on this photosynthetic plant cell, we can see the chloroplast, where the reactions of photosynthesis occur. Photosynthesis consists of two primary steps, the light reactions and the Calvin cycle reactions. In this tutorial, we'll focus exclusively on the light reactions. The light reactions occur within the thylakoid of the chloroplast. Here, special pigments absorb light energy and transfer it to high-energy electrons, eventually producing ATP and the electron carrier NADPH. Let's zoom into the thylakoids to take a closer look at how ATP is created. The light reactions use two photosystems, called photosystem 1 and photosystem 2, which are both embedded in the thylakoid membrane. It's important to realize that these photosystems are named for the order in which they were discovered, not for the order in which they participate in the photosynthetic process. The light reactions actually begin at photosystem 2. The first thing that happens is that photosystem 2 receives photons, or light energy. This light energy is transferred to a chlorophyll reaction center, causing electrons in the reaction center to become energized. These electrons become so energized that they escape photosystem 2 and move to a nearby electron acceptor molecule located in the electron transport chain. Meanwhile, to replace the electrons leaving photosystem 2, water is split, releasing oxygen, 2 hydrogen ions, and 2 electrons. The first set of electrons continues to move down the electron transport chain, releasing stored energy as it moves. This energy is used to create a hydrogen ion gradient. A protein in the electron transport chain pumps hydrogen ions from the stroma into the thylakoid space. This creates a high concentration of ions in the thylakoid space relative to the low concentration of ions in the stroma. This gradient contains a large amount of potential energy, which is used by an enzyme called ATP synthase. The hydrogen ions flow down their concentration gradient through a channel in ATP synthase, releasing energy in the process. ATP synthase uses this energy to add a phosphate to ADP, forming ATP. Let's zoom back out for a moment and return to our chloroplast. Remember from the beginning of this tutorial that the light reactions produce both ATP and NADPH. We've just seen how ATP is produced, but what about NADPH? Let's zoom back in to take a closer look. Notice these electrons over here where we left them at photosystem 1. As photosystem 1 absorbs additional light energy, the electrons again become energized, escaping photosystem 1 and moving down the second electron transport chain. Electrons from the electron transport chain adjacent to photosystem 2 replace those in photosystem 1. And again, water is split to replace the electrons that have moved from photosystem 2. At the end of this electron transport chain, the energized electrons in a hydrogen molecule are used to reduce NADP to NADPH. Let's zoom back out to review. The light reactions use light energy and water to produce ATP and NADPH. Oxygen gas is released as a byproduct. Together, the ATP and NADPH formed during the light reactions are used by the Calvin cycle reactions, which are discussed more in depth in a separate tutorial. The important thing to remember from this tutorial is that plants need both light and water to survive. Without these ingredients, the light reactions would shut down, stalling photosynthesis and causing the plant to die.
Okay, let's go back to our presentation again. As I've said, the video is quite, of course, overwhelming. But again, our focus here is, or our discussion focuses only on the different aspects: goal, location, input, and output. So I will be referring to this part of the video, which you see the overall process of the light reaction or the first stage of photosynthesis. So you will notice here that there are, aside from the chemicals, You also have the labels and of course the arrows. The arrows here actually signifies the movement or the role of these chemicals. Okay, so let me go back. So here, what's the ultimate goal of this particular stage? You will notice that on this stage uses specifically the light or the light or the solar energy from the sun. That's why it's called light reaction or light stage. But you will notice that in this particular stage, this is actually considered to be the preparatory stage wherein um, certain chemicals that will be needed for the second stage are prepared or created here so that, of course, the later part will be the later part or the later stage will, of course, happen. So, what's the ultimate goal here? The ultimate goal is that conversion of light energy into chemical energy. You'll notice, or if you're listening a while ago, that energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but instead, you can only transform it to one form or another. Initially, the light that is available here on Earth is only in the form of solar or light energy, but are able to convert that into another form called chemical energy. And specifically, this is done under the first stage or the light dependent reaction. Now, looking at the picture here or this very last part of the video, which part of the chloroplast will this stage happen? Do you see the clue?
Thylakoid.
Okay, very good. So it happens inside specifically on the thylakoid membranes inside the chloroplast. Now, what about the input? Remember, the input are the raw materials, the ingredients. So based on the arrow, what are the two main ingredients that should go to the thylakoid and should be available so that this stage will happen or occur?
Light
Light
and
and
water.
water.
Very good. It's light and water or light and H2O. So light will activate the chlorophyll, and because of that activated energy, this will actually help water later on and will be split into different or simpler components. So here, so the input is, of course, we have the light and water. And of course, we can only create ATP and NADH later on the second stage here if it is, of course, available. NADP and NADP and ADP and NADP are actually the ingredients already available inside the thylakoid. And these ingredients later on will be converted into another form of chemical. So in this case, what about the output? What are the or two products? There are two important products which will be necessary or needed for the second stage. And one product is considered waste, meaning unnecessary and unneeded product na siya. So what are these products? Two needed and the other one is considered waste.
NADPH and ATP.
Okay, so those are the two, correct, Ira and Miles? So NADPH and ATP are the two ingredients or two products, two substances produced from the first stage, which will be later on used for the Calvin cycle or the second stage. Now, what about the waste product, the unnecessary product that's also produced under this stage? Any idea? Diba si NADPH and ATP will go to the Calvin cycle. What is another substance that's also produced from light and water but or is considered waste?
Oxygen.
Okay, very good. So oxygen gas or oxygen is of course taken from water. And this here, as you can see, you will notice that instead of staying inside the chloroplast, the oxygen gas is actually moving out from the chloroplast, out from the body of the plant. That's why it's said that plants exhale oxygen back to the ecosystem or the environment. So going back as on our list, we have we have oxygen, which is considered the waste product, NADP and ATP, which will be used during the second stage or Calvin cycle or dark stage. So these are our list or summary for light dependent reaction. Now let's proceed to the light independent reaction. So let me now share this time the second stage. Okay, for a while.
The leaves of this plant have cells that carry out photosynthesis. If we zoom in on this photosynthetic plant cell, we can see the chloroplast, where the reactions of photosynthesis occur. Photosynthesis consists of two primary steps, the light reactions and the Calvin cycle reactions. In this tutorial, we'll focus exclusively on the Calvin cycle reactions. The overall purpose of the Calvin cycle is to convert carbon dioxide from the atmosphere into carbohydrates, or sugars, which the plant needs to power its cellular activities and build new plant structures. The Calvin cycle reactions occur within the stroma of the chloroplast. The reactions use the ATP and NADPH produced by the light reactions to convert the CO2 to carbohydrate. Let's zoom into the Calvin cycle to take a closer look. The Calvin cycle could be divided into three phases: carbon dioxide fixation, carbon dioxide reduction, and regeneration of RUBP. The first phase, carbon dioxide fixation, basically captures the CO2 from the atmosphere so it can be used in the reactions. To do this, CO2 is attached to RUBP, a 5-carbon molecule. The enzyme used in this reaction is called ribisco, and the result of the reaction is an unstable 6-carbon molecule that quickly splits into two 3-carbon molecules called 3-phosphoglycerate, or 3PG. Next, the process of converting the CO2 to carbohydrate begins. This phase is called the carbon dioxide reduction phase because we're adding electrons and energy to the CO2 molecule. During this phase, a sequence of reactions uses NADPH and some of the ATP from the light reactions. These molecules supply the needed electrons and energy for CO2 reduction. Electrons are added from NADPH, and through a series of reactions, 3PG is reduced to form G3P, a carbohydrate. ADP and NADP+ return to the thylakoids to be converted back to ATP and NADPH by the light reactions. One of the G3P molecules is set aside to be used as a building block for glucose, but the majority of the G3P molecules move forward into the third phase of the Calvin cycle. In this phase, ATP is used to combine the rest of the G3P molecules to form RUBP molecules. This RUBP can then combine with additional carbon dioxide molecules, continuing the carbon reactions. To form a glucose molecule, the cycle actually has to turn 6 times, because each turn of the cycle adds only one carbon atom from the incoming carbon dioxide. It's important to remember that the Calvin cycle is dependent on the light reactions to provide NADPH and ATP, which in turn provide the electrons and energy needed to form carbohydrates.
Okay, now that we have watched that second video, let's now back to our presentation. So in this case, this is the stage or the reaction in the photosynthesis we're in. The energy, the chemical energy is now is used to assemble the the final product, which is which is a sugar molecule known as C6H12O6 or glucose, which is actually assembled from carbon dioxide. Now, take note that in this particular stage, it happens inside the stroma. So, if we look at this last um, part of the video, you will see that this is actually very similar to the last video in such a way that it is showing the overall reaction for this particular stage. So you will notice that this is the thylakoid, or these are the thylakoids. It's now happening outside the thylakoid, or the space inside the chloroplast, which is of course we know as stroma. Now, looking at this picture, what are the materials, the raw materials needed for this stage, the second stage, for it to occur or to happen?
NADPH and ATP and carbon dioxide.
Very good. So as you can see here, the arrows are going towards the Calvin cycle reaction. So you need carbon dioxide, which is the gas that is readily available from the atmosphere. So these are the gas or gases that are inhaled by plants. Okay. And then, of course, the NADP and ATP, these are the substances or the products from the first stage or the first reaction called light reaction. So that means that if we look at it here, carbon dioxide, ADP, NADPH, and ATP from the first stage will be used to convert and construct the necessary glucose or C6H12O6. Now, what is, of course, the most important output for this stage or product for this stage? Anyone? So, ang carbon dioxide, NADPH, and ATP, these are the inputs. Unsa man ang ginaproduce sa Calvin cycle at the end of its process? Anyone?
Carbohydrates.
Okay, carbohydrates, or we know as sugar, glucose, C6H12O6. And of course, these are stored inside the body of the plants. And if these bodies are consumed or ingested by other organisms like animals and humans, we also are able to get this substance. All right. So going back here, so the main product here is C6H12O6, while that is, of course, as I've mentioned, stored in the different parts of the plant. Some they are stored as part of the fruit or modified flower or kanang modified roots, kanang mga example potato, modified roots man na sila, and they're very rich of carbohydrates. So enlarged siya na root, or if you have of course kanang mga fruit bearing plants, most of their carbohydrates or glucose that they produce, they store it as part of their fertilized ovary na which will result to a fruit. So munang some fruits generally, if they are of course ripened, they're sweet. But generally, when you say sugar, it's not necessarily sweet. Okay? Sa paman. Okay, so I think that's it. So take note that I think the one important statement mentioned here from the video is that light dark reaction is actually dependent on the first stage. It was mentioned here. Let me move this a little bit backward. Okay, Calvin cycle is dependent on the light reaction, which provides the necessary materials for this stage to occur. So it's in the form of NADP and ATP. Together with the carbon dioxide, this will enable the stage to manufacture the most needed and most anticipated product, which is in the form of carbohydrates or sugar. Okay, so let's now simplify our or put it in a summary. So during light stage, what is the important um, thing that we should take note of this is that light energy is absorbed by the chlorophyll. Light energy actually is used to activate the necessary electrons that will split water into hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, So hydrogen actually will be used later on for the next stage as part of the assembling of C6H12O6 or glucose. And lastly, during the light independent stage, sometimes this is called Calvin cycle or dark stage. This is the stage we're in. Carbon dioxide, carbon dioxide, NADP, and ATP are used to assemble carbohydrates. Okay? And then, of course, the most important product for this stage is glucose, C6H12O6. Now, let us check if we really understood our discussion for this afternoon. So, I have here um, photosynthesis is a chemical reaction. Therefore, we can actually represent this chemical reaction through our chemical equation. So, as you can see here, this is our product side, the reactant side, and this one is our product side. So, of course, in this case, there are two main ingredients or two main reactants or input for the photosynthesis. You have here carbon dioxide and water. As you can see here, before each chemical formula, you will notice that there are numbers 6 carbon dioxide and 6 H2O. That means for this reaction to occur, you need 6 units or 6 bunches, if you say that in a simplified manner, 6 carbon dioxide and 6 H2O. Okay? And that actually will only provide or create one or generate one molecule of C6H12O6 or glucose. And as a result, it will also produce 6 oxygen gases or 6 oxygen molecules. So let us say if we want to generate um, a certain amount of glucose, you need, let us say, if you have 1 million, if you want to create 1 million glucose, you need to have 6 times the amount of carbon dioxide and 6 times amount of H2O for you to generate one one glucose lang, because these are the necessary ingredients to produce one glucose molecule. Right? So heads up everyone, okay, before we forget, as I've mentioned, the modules are or the module for the first week is already available on our um Silid class card. Okay, so please take note during our first 4 session this week, we will cover photosynthesis, which we had a while ago. Then we have session 2, cellular respiration. Then session 3 is actually our PT making. So we will be done with our first our we will be making our PT during the first, we are one of the earliest subject areas na naanay PT, okay? Because you will see sa atong socials, I actually posted the summary of submissions na siya sa atong class card. And then, automatically, we'll also have our long test number 1 during the 4th session. So as I've said, this quarter is very short, and anticipate that things will be done faster than the usual. Okay, so please prepare on that, and of course, be aware. Okay, so here is actually the one I said a while ago. So as you can see here, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 outputs for this quarter. But as of course, the teachers, the grade 9 teachers really made sure that our integrated or performance tasks will not overlap from one another. So for Science B, we are scheduled for the first week of January. So of course, we have a different deadline for subject areas or sections under week A and week B. So please take note, the schedule of our PT making will be during the 3rd session of this week. At the same time, of course, that means it's also the submission because you will be given the entire period to construct or draft your essay. Okay? So I think that's it for this afternoon. Let me now stop presenting. Okay, I think that's it for Science B. Let me now change my layout so that I can see everyone. Okay, are there concerns, questions, or clarifications before I leave the Google Meet? Regarding your second quarter grade, I'm not sure. Of course, my account is, I'm using the teacher's um, version of the Wella. Okay. So from your end, let me ask everyone, from your end, were you able to see your second quarter grades using the Wella app? If you have seen your grade, please thumbs up. Okay, Miles is moving his head side to side, meaning it's a no. How about the rest? For those who have seen their grades or second quarter grades from the Wella app, please thumbs up or activate your thumbs up. So that means wala. Okay, Pauline? Yes, Pauline, you're raising your hand, or is that a confirmation that you've seen your grades on the Wella app? Hello? I've seen. Okay. So, naana siya. So, actually, I asked teacher Luel, because of course she's our GLC, to confirm if there is already a go signal. What she said is that as long as I have already the grades, complete grades, di ba I mentioned yes last Friday that I have already downloaded your PDF version of your report card. So I'm already ready to share it via email. So she said that if your grades are complete, ang attendance okay na, I may share the grades through the email. Okay? So please inform your parents, okay? So wala pa man day available sa Wella app ang grades. I have already sent to them their PDF version of your report card through their emails, their respective individual emails. Okay na? Yes, Miles. So, okay. Okay? So, katong mga emails, of course, some of your parents have already replied to me before. No problem with that. But there are still some parents na wala pa gid sila naka-confirm even during the second quarter na report card. So, I'm not sure if the email address is still considered active. I sure ang akong gilag, isa ni? Let me, okay.
Login.
Akong gilog-in na emails akong mama sa akong phone, nakita na nako, sure, hihi. Okay, sure, are we allowed to ask the numerical grades? For the numerical grades, of course, it's your right to ask for the numerical grade, but of course, if you ask the numerical grade, it defeats the purpose of your letter grade. Okay, so if you really want to know your equivalent letter grade, you may ask your subject teachers for that, since they are the ones who computed your grades. Okay? So please message them. Ask, sure, kanusa nag-send o grades sa email? I sent it this morning. Nan, okay, sige. So please take note, the email that I use were the email address na use sa inyong parents sa Wella. So of course, I'm not sure if those email address are still considered active. Okay ra ka, Miles? Okay? Okay ra ka, Miles? Okay, so
Okay na,
far,
sir.
kinaan ay mga parents na nag-reply and okay. So far, okay, I have here confirmation coming from the mother of Lawrence. mother of Angel, mother of Sophia, and mother of Pauline. I think mother ba ni siya? Yes, mother ni Pauline. So four parents have already confirmed that they have received my email regarding the um kuan, regarding their second quarter grade. Okay? Okay, thank you Marinelle for that. Okay, I think that's it for this afternoon. So we will see each other tomorrow, 12:30 for the second session. Take care and God bless everyone. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye, teacher.
Bye,
Bye-bye.